Welcome to the show today, everybody. Keeping homeschool records is a daunting task for a lot of people. In Thrive Homeschool Community, we have questions all of the time about how do I keep my homeschool records? Do I even need to keep my homeschool records? Which, as you know, the laws are different in every state. But the real question is, what about high school? How should we be doing this? What if my child is college bound? What if they're not college bound? What exactly should I be doing? Well, I found the perfect guest to suss all of this out, help us with a really great action plan. She's an expert on homeschool planning. She homeschooled all of her kids. She'll tell us in a minute. I don't know how old your kids are, but she'll share with us her experience. And she started a business called Homeschool Records, which you can explore at the end of this show. But really today's show is about demystifying the whole complexity of the process because it's not as hard as you think. And yes, in some states you are required to do it, but in the states where you're not, is it a good idea to do it anyway? That's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Joan. Would you take a moment to introduce yourself a little bit more than I just did?
Sure. Thank you, Christy. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your show today. As Christy said, I am a retired homeschool mom. We homeschooled our 4 kids, 2 sons, 2 daughters from the start over 20 years. So now we have 5 grandkids and our school-age grandkids are being homeschooled. Our oldest daughter is going to be turning 35 this year. And then we have a 33-year-old son, 32-year-old son, and a daughter going on 30. So we had 4 kids in 5 years. So it was pretty tight group there at the time when we were homeschooling, but it's just a joy. And now I get to enjoy them homeschooling and support them as well.
Well, and so I'm so curious, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but I love meeting women who homeschooled in a very different time than we are now. Yeah. What was that like when you decided 25 years ago? Because you said your kids are now in your 30s, so around when they were 5 years old. Why did you decide to homeschool in the first place?
Well, it was kind of a funny story. Like anybody else, God evolves He reveals things to us over time. And at the beginning, we did know I have one brother that homeschooled. I'm the 8th of 13 children, and so I have lots of siblings. And one of my older brothers was homeschooling, so it wasn't completely foreign to us, but it was very foreign in those days, culture-wise. So when our oldest daughter got ready for school age, we knew we weren't going to put her in the public schools. We lived in Southern California. It wasn't the best. So we looked at private school and, you'll laugh at the amount, but I think it was something like $1,200 for kindergarten in that day. And in our day, I told my husband, I said, I can teach her to read for $1,200. So that's literally how we started. But over time, we just all grew to love it. And then, it was not too many years into it where it really, for us, became a biblical conviction for our family. Like, this is God's calling on our lives. And we just loved it and just stayed through to the end. And they all went to college and got degrees in various things. And so we're just grateful.
That is such a cool story. Did you ever have moments where you didn't let your kids go out to play until 3 p.m.? Did you face any of those fears at all?
No, we didn't really face that so much. It wasn't so much a fear, but it was more like, because all our neighbors around us, there were a lot of elderly people and they just loved the kids, but as different demographics started moving in different age groups and stuff, it was more just like, I don't want to have this conversation again as to why my kids are out front playing in the front yard.
I think we could all relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about socialization again. Let's go. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so thank you for that. I know that was off topic, but I'm really excited about what you do. I met you because you came to our co-op and you talked to the moms about Homeschool Records. And that's how I even met you in the first place. I was so impressed with what you've built and what you do and how, what really impressed me was the excellence to which you have built out your program. So Mama, whether or not you use Homeschool Records or not, really that's not what we're about today. We're about unpacking Homeschool Records, Why should you do it? Is it important if it's not required? And so that leads to right to our first question here. So how would you advise a mom to keep records if she lives in a state that doesn't require them? What is the benefit of doing this?
Well, throughout this, podcast today, we'll be covering various reasons under different, category types. But I think I'd like to start with it brings integrity for the mom first and foremost. When you've got a neighbor, a nosy neighbor, or grandparents, or somebody who's just like, what are you doing? To be able to share with them. And we would just share casually with our family, because my husband's, we live near his family, and his mom and dad and stepmom and stepdad were all educators. And so for me to just in casual conversation be like, yeah, we just did the kids' transcript, or we just got their test results back, whatever. It brought integrity for myself, that I felt like, okay, I can present this to people what they're used to. It's not like I want to fit in a box, but it just brought integrity for myself and for what we were doing. But then also, I think as a community of homeschoolers, it helps the community when we all, to various degrees, have some kind of record keeping or accountability. It brings integrity to the homeschool movement in general, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing that really struck me is during that presentation to our co-op, you said, Unschoolers love us. And I thought that was really cool because, so much is part of homeschooling is the different pedagogies that we believe in, whether it's Charlotte Mason or it's classical or unit study, all types of homeschooling styles are out there. And I think that even if you're doing record keeping kind of at the end of the day, you're just using it as a log of what you did, it's really valuable to track what you did for a lot of reasons. But first, I want to speak to what's your philosophy regarding different learning styles? Because a lot of people, and the reason why I want to ask you this specifically is a lot of people think record keeping is just for the traditional style homeschoolers who are kind of replicating school at home. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've thought about this a lot over the years as I've had conversations with various people about it. And I kind of came up with this analogy where it's like, let's talk about the weather. Weather is different weather all over the country, all over the world. It's sunny, it's rainy, it's snowy, or whatever. But so it's all different types of weather, all different types of homeschoolers. But getting back to the weather analogy, the sun rises in the morning, the sun sets at the end of the day. We have fall, we have winter, we have spring. My point here is there's order in creation, even amongst the chaotic weather. And I do find that, and I have found talking to like unschoolers, like you said, it brings order to their homeschooling to be able to document that. And I don't look at it as, gee, we have to do this because the public school or private schoolers do this.
Right.
It's like, and we're going to get into a lot of other, reasons and ways that it helps. But I do think it brings some order. And that's from the unschoolers of all people. They're the ones that have said, like, we do different things, we'll do cooking for math or whatever. And, it just feels good to put down and record that we did, some math today, or even if it's just at the end of a semester or whatever. They just find we all desire order to varying degrees. And so I think that's really how home record keeping impacts different learning styles.
Yeah. And that's one thing too, is I know that one thing I regret not doing from early on was a reading log. All of the literature that my kids have read, I honestly don't even remember. They're reading all the time. We've talked about books all the time, but it would have helped me not be so hard on myself, I think. And although that's a later question I was going to ask you, I don't mind diving into that now, because I think that's really valid and it speaks to our fears and how hard moms can be on themselves with our homeschooling, where we are really good at minimizing what we do. We're really good
Yes.
at like, well, we're still behind rather than saying, look how far we've come. Look at how much we did. And I think with record keeping it's a great way that it's the tangible evidence to kind of like that cognitive reappraisal. No, we actually did an incredible amount and my kids have come so far this year. Wow, this is incredible. And it's right there in front of you. And I think that's why it's so powerful. That's one regret I have because I live in a state, Colorado, where we don't have to keep a lot of meticulous records. We do have to stay legal and there are hoops that we have to jump through, like with attendance and required subjects. But in terms of we are a mid-regulation state. We're not a high regulation state where we have to tick every box and verify everything that we've done. But I know that a question I get a lot from homeschool curious families, and originally it's viewed as an objection to homeschooling in general. And so I want to dive into this whole idea of accreditation, that scary word, right? Well, your high school doesn't count. It's not accredited. You shouldn't be homeschooling high school. It's not accredited. How will your kid get into college? So what's the truth? Does a homeschool transcript have the same weight as quote unquote accredited transcripts from a public school or a private school?
The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll give you the definition. I started because I hear this a lot too. So I'm like, I want to look up the exact definition of the word accredited. And it refers to an institution, program, or person that has received official recognition, authorization, or certification from a recognized authority proving they meet specific predetermined quality standards. So you look at the 30,000 foot level, and if a homeschool family is following their state law, then we meet this definition of accredited. Now, you could split hairs. You talk to an educator and say, well, homeschool transcript is accredited, from some stamp of somebody. The bottom line is, because it can go in all different kinds of directions, but the bottom line is that homeschool transcripts don't need to be accredited. They carry the weight. If you follow state law, and follow the requirements to homeschool, then your student's transcript, you are the principal of your school and your children are your students. And so when you produce a transcript, a diploma, everything, so long as you meet the state requirements, then you are accredited. Now, again, it can go down the road of, is this course accredited by some institution, whatever. I personally have never come across, I don't know of any college that's going to require a homeschool transcript to be accredited, So,
and if they did, they'd be breaking the law, actually.
Exactly.
Because that's discrimination against us, which thank goodness we have all of our beautiful state organizations who support our rights. And nationally, we have HSLDA, and they are always going to bat. I know that it was either last year or 2 years ago, they were having problems, and I'm on the board of Nevada Homeschool Association, and we were having problems in Nevada, particularly with cosmetology schools not recognizing homeschool transcripts. Now, the colleges know better, but some of these institutions, and of course, because we have constitutional grounds, we win all those battles because it's literally discrimination to discriminate against a student with a homeschool high school transcript. And so I think it's really important for parents to know that our public school system was created 150 years ago. And it's like, this is still an experiment that's, by the way, failing. Look at the reading rates of the average high school graduate right now. And you'd be questioning the public schools' validation of their transcripts, honestly.
On so many levels.
I know, on so many levels. And so, not that I want to have a diatribe of that right now, but I think it's a silly question, especially because we're within fully our rights. Now, also what we do know is that colleges are recruiting homeschoolers. And at more and more rates. And the reason why is because we are, colleges are businesses. Homeschool students are very good students generally, as particularly the ones who are college bound. They know how to learn things themselves. They know how to complete things. They are very good writers, thanks to fantastic writing programs that are very popular in the homeschool space. And they finish their degrees. And that's what colleges want, because at the bottom the bottom dollar is the bottom line. And so they've realized, wow, these homeschool students do very well in our programs. So don't let that mama listening or dad listening right now, don't let the idea of accreditation keep you from thinking that somehow what you're doing is not valid, because it's not at all. We used to advise families for college counseling back when we had our center in Los Angeles. And I tell homeschool families to do the same exact thing that I told those families who were applying to Yale and Princeton. And that is, you look at the course requirements that the college wants for admissions, and you work backwards and you make sure your student has those classes in high school. And that's what you do. And that's how we've always done it. Homeschooling 4 kids means I'm juggling roughly 24 different subjects at any given time. And a few years back, during a particularly busy season, I hit a wall. I needed some serious help with the heavy lifting of teaching everything myself and managing schedules for 4 kids. That's when I found BJU Press Homeschool, and we've loved their courses so much that we keep going back. Some families use them for everything and love it. I use them for certain subjects. Either way, total mental load relief. Here's what my mornings look like now. Let us take science, for example. My 3 girls do that one together. They fire up the lesson taught by a real teacher, well-produced, actual teaching, not just click-through busy work. And I sit there with my coffee, watch them, or make breakfast, and we discuss the big ideas. Every BJU Press Homeschool course prioritizes critical thinking, a biblical worldview, and hands-on learning. I just guide the conversation and pick which activity or pages or projects we want to do, and everything's already planned out. They have an online platform included for you called the Homeschool Hub, and it keeps everyone on track, both me and my kids, without micromanaging or nagging. And when I have questions, I call my homeworks consultant. These people don't just help you get set up, they're available for you whenever you need them. It's like having a homeschool expert on speed dial. Go to bjupresshomeschool.com or click the link in the show notes to find out more. People are always curious what curriculum I use for my own family. And honestly, it changes. We've tried a lot over the years. Some work for a season and some completely miss the mark. But there is one that's stuck. CTC Math. It's a full K-12 online math curriculum, and it's won oodles of awards for a reason. It's just that good. I use it for all 4 of my kids, and they couldn't be more different when it comes to math. Finding one curriculum that actually works for all of them, that's been nearly impossible. You know that pit in your stomach when you realize the curriculum that you just invested in isn't working again? Yeah, that was us until this one. The genius behind CTC Math is that it's adaptive. The questions adjust to each kid's level in real time, so they're always challenged but never crushed. And mama, it does the teaching and grading for us. Yes, you heard that right. That's a homeschool mom's dream. Well, especially for me when it comes to math. I would think it's too good to be true if I hadn't been using it myself. And it's not just me. Here's why it's become the go-to for thousands of homeschool families. Free diagnostics show you exactly where to start, access to all grade levels so your student can fill in any gaps or move ahead, short video lessons that keep your children engaged, automatic grading with instant feedback, and progress reports so you know exactly what's happening without hovering. Math used to be our hardest subject. Now my kids do it independently. Here's the best part. Our listeners get 50% off. Use the link in the show notes to do a free trial or to get that half-off deal. Don't spend another year kissing math frogs. This one stuck for us, and I have a feeling it's going to stick for you too. That leads to the homeschool transcript question, because I know you can get a free Pinterest download. You can go on Canva and do it. I don't advise that. I want to talk a little bit about homeschool transcripts. And I agree with you, Joan. I've heard you say on multiple occasions how important it is that they look professional. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, I'll just right up front, an old adage I'll say is first impressions matter, right? So when you're applying for a job, and I've heard the same thing you have, Christy, where families are like, it's just data. Colleges want to see they just want to see the data. And that may be true in some cases. I can't speak for every college, but I just like parents to think about when you go apply for a job and you're putting together your resume, are you just thinking like, oh, they just want data. They just want what the things I did, the jobs I worked. I'm just going to slap it in an Excel spreadsheet and send it out. It's like, no, we don't do that. We pay attention to formatting. We pay attention to how it looks and professionalism. And so I think it's really important that our kids have worked hard. We've worked hard. I remember in my day, I'll just sidebar, a quick moment here to say that the heart of Homeschool Records came out from the fact I didn't have anything like this when I was creating records. And, I'm sitting here with Excel and trying to color block and do all this stuff and, Excel to try to, because I'm looking at a transcript you can produce and I'm going, this is really depressing. Like all that work. And this is how we send it off to a college, and so that seed was kind of in my mind. And I spent a lot of time formatting and doing things to make it look professional because I thought, especially with colleges today, not very many colleges do interviews. And so documentation is all we have to communicate to the colleges who our student is and the kind of work they've done. So it's a very important thing, I think, to make sure that our students are professionally represented in the documentation.
Yeah. And when do you advise a mom starts this high school transcript stuff? Is it something that she can put together the senior year of high school, or do you think she should start earlier?
Well, the transcript is one thing. And I think, just speaking to the transcript, I would say the earlier the better, because, you're going to have to sit there and think back of 4 years of academics when you go to put together the transcript, or 3 years except in the junior year. And I guarantee you, by the time a mom has done that, she has spent more hours worrying about it and thinking about it. And it's like, I got to do this one of these days and whatnot. So my recommendation is, and because it's not just a transcript, we have the student resume, which is activities, awards, achievements. The transcript is academics and what the student has done academically. The activities, awards, and achievements expound on that. So if a student is in speech and debate, they can get credit for speech and debate academically. But on the resume, then, now you talk about what tournaments they were involved in, what place did they take, and what did they achieve in that. And then what jobs they did. The colleges want to see that, they want to know the student. That's what I've worked with a lot of colleges over the years. And like you said, Christy, they are recruiting homeschoolers. They love them. And what I hear all the time is, but we need to understand you guys. Like, who are your students? They're used to boxes of fitting in with getting information. And so we try to help provide that information in the avenues they're used to. But so kind of getting back to timing, I think ninth grade is the time to start. By the time ninth grade starts, you need to have chosen, I don't care if it's Homeschool Records or something else, you need to have made that decision. Do the free trials of all the different places, because whatever you use to document it, it has to fit you, mom, because you're the one that has to stay on top of it. So if you're not connecting with something and you're like, this is just cumbersome, try something else. But ninth grade, be ready to go out of the gate, because every activity, award, achievement, semester by semester, job, course, everything. If you wait to your senior year, you're going to be stressed beyond what you can imagine. Really.
Right. Well, and you'll forget important things.
Yes.
That one internship or the mission trip or the leadership opportunity. All those things I can barely remember what I had for dinner last night.
Me too.
So yeah, I think, and I agree with you so much. I mean, just from not that a mom of a kindergartner needs to do it to this degree, but it also jogs your memory when you are putting together that transcript and remember that. And then you might actually see a through line somewhere, a talent that you didn't see before. It's a great fingerprint of your kid, and you can see how they developed. And I'm a big believer in the gap and gain thinking, meaning, because I have this passion for homeschoolers. We always feel like we're behind today. We're behind this week. What did I get accomplished this week? We're behind, right? I just did a podcast episode on there's more lessons left than days left of the year, ladies. What are we going to do? Which is everybody, right? So, but when you keep records, it's literally evidence. Look how far you've come. Look at what you did. So, for example, my son, he took cultural geography this year, and it was a very rigorous course. It was done at our co-op, and intense. We did cultural geography, physical geography, world religions. We did it all. We did it all. And part of that course was mapping. And the teacher of the course said, by the end of the year, you are going to be able to map the entire world and list all the countries on your hand-drawn map by heart. And I got to tell you, I was like, this kid, this one, right? Like, really? I don't know. And
I couldn't do that.
I know. Well, the thing is because it was broken down. We did each continent. The kids prepared beautiful presentations all year. They even had their public speaking credit in this. They even had their writing credit. We incorporated literature. We just did a very cool thing, which actually is interesting with Homeschool Records because that one course fulfilled so many other credits. Yes. That being able to piece that, like if you do a course and you did a ton of writing in it, well, could that go towards some writing credits, right? Like that's what you help moms do. But my point is that yesterday was the last day and all of the kids put up on the walls their huge, these are massive world maps. And it was their final exam. They all they stood over the tables for 4 hours, drawing their maps from heart and labeling all the countries. The reason why it applies to what we're talking about today is it was physical evidence we could see of how hard they worked and how much they did. And I just think what a gift that was. And then those younger kids were able to go in there and say, whoa, to these high schoolers, you did that. And the high schoolers were presenting their maps and all these things to the younger kids. If you are the type of mom listening right now and you're hard on yourself, you're kind of that perfectionist mom, one challenge you could give yourself for next year is maybe give yourself 20 minutes every Friday or something like that. And just write down what you did. You'll feel so much better about the education that you're giving your kids. So that was a little bit of a ramble, but I think that we're just so in alignment with this in terms of the level of excellence. I want to stop and ask you right now that if my podcast series has been helpful to you in any way, would you stop and do something for me? Even right now, it'll only take you 10 seconds and it costs you nothing. Would you hit that thumbs up, give the show 5 stars if I've earned it, leave a comment, or maybe click that notification so that you get a little bell that rings when a podcast episode drops, and make a comment about the show or ask a question. Those little tiny things that can be done so quickly, they tell the algorithm, those robots behind the screen, that this show is worth showing other moms. There's probably a mom really overwhelmed right now that needs this podcast series. And just by you engaging in a little way, that can help her find us. And it also helps me give you oodles of value for free, because when a lot of people watch the show, the sponsors are happy. And if someone comes to mind while you're listening, maybe a friend who's nervous about homeschooling, Googling at night, not sure what to do, please go ahead and send her this series. And thank you so much ahead of time. Even if you only do 1 or 2 of those things, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. So I want to talk about, you've probably seen moms who've been homeschooling for years with zero paper trail. Zero, right? What's your don't panic, here's what to do advice for them?
Well, I would say to get started. I know that sounds silly, but like I alluded to earlier, that mom has spent way more hours fretting, worrying, thinking about how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that, than it's actually going to take if you just sit down and do it. And I will just speak for a moment, because this is another heart of mine with Homeschool Records, is I designed my site to be teaching site. So as you're creating the records, as you're building your transcript, I'm teaching you how to build it as you build it. It's integrated into the interface. And so I think it's a twofold issue. The number one is the mom gets overwhelmed because she doesn't know how to do it. The thought of like, oh my goodness, I got to do this, I got to do that. And how am I going to do that? That's addressed through Homeschool Records. So in teaching them, but the bigger piece too that goes along with that is you just have to get started. And then you'll realize, I remember another analogy, a friend of mine, when we were raising our kids together and they were all toddlers, she had 3, I had 4. And we were both like, do you know how hard it is to make the bed every day? Like, it is so hard to make the bed every day, to get the time to do it. And her husband made this very wise observation. He said, and it sounds silly, but you make the bed first thing in the morning, because if you get through the day, you will have walked through that bedroom and made that bed 50 times in your head before you've actually done it. And so you've wasted all that energy on thinking about, oh, I got to get to that. I need to do that. I need to do that. And I think that same analogy works for record keeping. It's like, just sit down and start it and do it. And you'll be like, this is great. I didn't have to fret all that time about it. It's just like you said, at the end of every semester, I always send out an email to all the, subscribers to say, okay, like I'm about ready to send it out now. Enter in the final grades from your student, enter in any activities they just completed, enter any of that, put in what they're going to do this fall, and put in what things they're doing over the summer. Like, it will take them to do all of that. It'll take like an hour of time tops. And most of that's just spent on thinking about, okay, let's see that. Yeah, they got a job. They're going to be doing that missions trip, all of that. So it's like so little time to get so much done.
Well, I got to say, I'm in that boat because it feels so much bigger, especially, right? So Lincoln just finished his freshman year, and it feels bigger than it really is if I just sat down and did it. What about families? This is a really important thing to talk about. What about families who don't think their child is college bound?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. There are so many situations that come up for students. You have things like jobs. There are companies that want to see the fact that your student has finished high school. So they want to see a transcript. If they're going to enlist in the military, they're going to have it, and it may be transcript or diploma. I'll kind of tie those two together because they can't get their diploma without the transcript being complete. But you have military enlistment, you have trade schools, you have jobs, you have apprenticeships, professional licensing that a student may want to pursue of some type that's outside of like a college situation. So there are so many different things that come up. I remember my younger brother one time he went out to buy a VCR, and he calls me and he's like, "Hey, Joni, bring me my high school diploma." And I'm like, "Where are you? You went to get a VCR." He's like, "I'm at a car dealer, and they have this deal of if you prove you graduated from high school, if you prove you finished high school, you get $500 off a new car." And so it was just like, wow, they're so silly, but there's all kinds of situations that it's just a really good idea. Plus I've had so many moms tell me that, like, my student graduated, they're going on to do whatever, but they downloaded all the documentation and they kept it as a keepsake for their student of it, like an academic yearbook is what you could call it, right? So whether it's for mom or for student, it's like, there's just a lot of reasons to keep, to do that.
Yes. And for the record, the way that moms listening, and Joan already knows this, but the way I truly believe to advise homeschooling families in this is, even if you don't think your child is college bound, this is my opinion, you want to build their transcript as if they are, because I can't tell you how many kids change their mind. They get into what career they thought they wanted to do when they were 15, 16, and they realize, oh, this is kind of awful. I don't want to be doing this the rest of my life. I think I want to go to college. And it's great if you have that ready, because think of the position you're going to be in if that is the case. And not every kid needs to go to college. In fact, it's kind of a joke nowadays. But my point is that you don't want to be scrambling and trying to remember what they did to make them look, all those wonderful things and all the great experiences that you gave them. You're not going to remember them 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And so if you just build it correctly now and it's there, you will be so thankful. And I love that kids even keep it as a keepsake, because it's evidence of what they did and all the things that they did accomplish.
I thought of something I wanted to swing back to in regards to your question about the parent who's thinking, I'll create the transcript or the documents when I need to start the application process. There are, outside of the stress we talked about that it causes the mom, but there are situations like military service academies, NCAA athletes, by the end of the junior year, and some scholarships as well. By the end of the junior year, that documentation has to be provided to, for the athletes, for applications to service academies. So if you're just thinking, kick the can down to tomorrow, and I've just like you, I've come across families that are like, my child wasn't going to go to whatever college, or they weren't planning on participating NCAA athlete. And then this door opens, and now they are those situations like military NCAA scholarships. Now they're really scrambling. And I think that it really, and I'll touch on this a little later when we talk about another topic, but it really can affect the quality of the documentation, because if you take time to ponder and remember, and you're kind of keeping things as you're going, then it's going to be more comprehensive. But if you're waiting till the end and you have to scramble to put things together, you're like, well, I don't remember what that was anyway, so I'm not going to do that. And you're not going to produce as quality of documentation to represent your student.
Yeah. Absolutely. Which, let's talk about that representation a little bit more, because I think one of the amazing flexes of homeschooling, especially in high school, is our kids generally have more breathing room and time to pursue interests and internships and do community service and things like that. So how can a well-documented service record open doors for kids? I have to tell you about something because it falls squarely in the category of things I wish someone had told me sooner. Real quick sponsor moment. Don't fast forward. We love our sponsors. We need our sponsors. Plus, this one might save you a lot of money. Shout out to Summit Health Share. It's my husband's company, and I think what they're doing is incredible. Can we just all agree that traditional health insurance is a nightmare? You're spending all this money and then constantly told what's not covered and where you can't go. And let's not even talk about the copays. You're probably paying thousands a month and still fighting with your insurance company about getting stuff covered. This is why I believe so much in the freedom that comes with health sharing. Now, it's not health insurance, but it can replace it. And it's completely established and trustworthy, been around for over 100 years. With Summit Health Share, most families and companies save between 40 and 60%, and they have a 98% customer satisfaction. You can go to any doctor you want, even the holistic crunchy ones, because there are no networks. You have medical freedom. And what's cool is there are different plan options. If you just need major medical, the basic stuff, you got it. But if you want something a little bit more fancy, there's plans that have free labs, free visits, and zero cost prescriptions. When we moved to health sharing, our family that very month started saving $1,000 per month on our healthcare. And it isn't too good to be true. It's actually how healthcare should work. Insurance companies just don't do it that way, obviously. So if you're on traditional health insurance, do this right this second. Go to summithealthshare.com. Go find the savings calculator. It's a button right on the homepage. It takes under 2 minutes. You'll type up everything that you or your family needs, and it will tell you what you should be paying. And then you're going to spit out your water. But while you're doing that, you're going to run to the phone. And when you call, they will walk you through everything. Make sure to tell them that you're a listener of the show, because I want you to have the VIP treatment. SummitHealthShare.com. Link is in the show notes. This podcast is also brought to you by the Christy-Faith list. Now hold up, because I want you to know what this is. I'm really proud of what the Christy-Faith list has become. It started really scrappy, just compiling recommendations, because I was fed up with guessing which businesses and providers and doctors weren't going to give me a hard time when I walked through those doors. And I had tons of friends and family members with nightmare situations where they felt like they were walking into an ambush situation just when they were trying to get help for their families. And I was sick and tired of the discrimination that homeschool families were getting. But since then, it has grown into a massive directory of colleges, businesses, doctors' offices, reading specialists, occupational therapists, homeschool graduates that are in business themselves now. You name it, all in one place. Because why wouldn't we want to do business with the people who share our values and actually want to work with homeschool families and not give us a hard time? It is completely free for homeschool families to search. And if you are a business owner or part of an organization that loves homeschool families and wants to reach more homeschool families and grow your business in that way, please sign yourself up. We want to know who you are. It's the place where homeschool families support the people who support us. Go to thechristyfaithlist.com today.
So yeah, outside of, how can this documentation and the activities awards achievement, how can the student resume help a student? I've had 2 families that have talked about their students getting a congressional letter of recommendation for their student as they apply to military service academies. Okay, so what they have said is that, you have to present a lot of documentation to get a congressional letter of recommendation. There's only a handful of students that will receive that. And so they just felt like, having the professional documentation helped, because they have to present things in the application like essay, resume, transcript, test scores, et cetera, letters of recommendation. And so again, when you're talking about professionally representing the things your student is doing outside of the academics, even how that is presented, like, you think about, I read where there's the congressmen only give like two letters of recommendation out of all the applicants, and they get thousands of applicants. And I think, how cool is that we've got, homeschool students that are achieving, obtaining that letter of recommendation. So that's that importance of that resume and what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, not just academically, but all around.
Yes, I love that. And I think that in general, record keeping, because a lot of moms listening to the show right now, they might have younger kids. I mean, we have everybody, but for the mom listening today who has younger kids, don't sleep on record keeping. Sometimes there's advice floating around there that's like, well, it's just something that you can just show your mother-in-law to prove that you're learning. And then a mom would come to me and say, but we are deschooled. We don't really want to replicate the system. So why would I keep records? But I think that keeping records to remember what you've done, not to prove something to other people, but more just to prove something to yourself, that you are doing a great job, that when you meet once a year or twice a year to go over with your spouse, what you're doing with your kiddos, you'll actually have the list. You'll be able to remember, right? Because moms can't remember anything. Well, I can't. So, and I love that. And what I love about your homeschool records, because when we met on a Zoom earlier, like, I'm a little bit of a transcript and documentation nerd, but what excites me is we need you. We need women like you, because you remember and will remind us to document the things we're not remembering to, or that we might not think are important. And so, explain a little bit what it's like to fill out a record in your program.
So I'll just address the transcript first of all, and it kind of equates to the other things. But I mean, you basically, starting with the teaching part, is just providing you, number one, with the fields that you need to enter. Yeah. That's the other thing. Some parents are like, what do colleges want on a transcript, right? So, you go in there and you select this. The first button is semester, and you'll see like fall, spring, summer. So just for example, right, there's a teaching moment, because a parent might be like, well, this is a full year course. And so the teaching part that they don't realize is taking place is that there are many colleges like Hillsdale, for example, they want to see the courses listed by semester and not just one grade full year. So that teaching is, I'm forcing you to select from the drop down, and then you get to the next one of, what's the category of that? Well, that's like the subject. So you look at the drop down, you see, oh, math, English, science, history. Okay, I get that. And then I have some preloaded courses, like for math, there's pre-algebra, algebra 1. So everything along the way, it's guided, or the template field itself, like the student resume, it too will ask, what's the activity title? And you kind of look at that, the drop-down menu. It's like volunteer, jobs, community service, that type of thing. It's like, oh, okay, I get. So the whole process there, you're constantly learning, and I'm trying to teach you and help guide you along in the process to make it as least stressful as possible. Because honestly, you guys, it isn't rocket science, but not everybody is good at administratively and understanding how to document things. And I like I said, I'm a nerd, and I enjoy making things as intuitive and easy for the mom as possible, to make it less stress, to free you up to go have fun with your kids and homeschool them,
So say a mom doesn't necessarily homeschool per se with subjects like that, because you mentioned that even unschoolers really like your program. What's that experience for them? Are they still dropping down and picking a subject science?
When it comes to high school, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, in high school, you have to fit into the college's boxes. I mean, from K through, up through K through 8. You can enjoy that and, do it how you want to do it. But honestly, I really think that and currently my site starts at 8th grade because I want it. And that's where the unschoolers are just like, this is really good for me because I've just been like, woohoo, doing this my own thing. And it helps guide them like, okay, let's prepare you for the high school part. But if even in K through 7, and I'm developing that right now, it'll be a not as structured in that way, like you have to put a subject or whatever. You can name things, but it's good, I think, to help a parent to even think about, how do we name things? What do we call this thing? And I mean, cooking is math, but you could just put cooking. When it's K through 7, just put cooking, or, library day or whatever. Just getting used to documenting that is just really helpful to parents. But yeah, for 8 through 12, you really should, I'm helping you learn how to fit in the boxes. The colleges are that you just have to fit in for their documentation.
Yes. Yeah. And you'd be surprised what you do cover. Sometimes I help families where the parents are split up, and as a courtesy, the mom, who's the primary homeschooler, will send her ex-husband a record it's not necessarily official. It's not required or anything like that, but as a courtesy so that he knows what their child is learning. And we meet and go over it sometimes. And I am always blown away at everything they've done but her homeschool looks like all of ours. But when you actually start writing the things down, you think, wait a minute, that's SEL learning. This is like a class in social emotional. This is amazing. And so when you start documenting those things, you'll get blown away at, when I hear on social media, everything's learning, that's never landed with me. I want to see it. Right? Don't tell me that. That doesn't make me feel better about the meltdown that's happening in the other wall over here. Right? So when that's why that exercise, and that's what I see what women would be doing on your website too, is that same thing where, okay, let's actually figure out what these things were, so that we have evidence and can feel really good about what we're doing. So I know that you prepared a discount for the listeners on the show today. Yes. Thank you so much. What is that?
You're welcome. It is Christy-Faith. No spaces, no lines, anything but all caps. Okay. So Christy-Faith will get you 20% off your first student and your first subscription with your first student. So you can get a try, but you have a 7-day free trial. So I really genuinely mean this from the heart to the moms out there. Try different record keeping services, because you just have to find something that fits you to give you confidence in moving forward. Because if it doesn't work, you're just going to you're going to walk by that computer and go, ugh, I got to log in to that place and do my thing, and you don't want that. You don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's so great. Okay, we'll put a link in the show notes for that. Are there any last words of encouragement you have for the mamas listening today? As a mom who's graduated her homeschooler, you've been on the other side, and here we are still in the trenches. Any words of encouragement for us?
I would just say you moms are doing an amazing thing for your kids. I look back and I just kind of marvel at, because you're in the trenches and you're at the grocery store and someone says to you, oh, your kids are so well behaved with the grocery store or whatever. And you're just like, you weren't here 30 seconds ago with this face, that. So those are the real everyday moments through life, but those moments add up. And I truly believe that moms are just designed to connect and lead your kids and educate them better than anyone else on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. And so while it's hard, I'll just say it is so worth it. And your kids will rise up and call you blessed. They might be 23, 24, 25, but they will, because they'll mature and recognize the effort that you've put in. And it's an effort of the heart. So just keep staying the course and all will be well. So keep it up, moms.
Oh, and thank you so much for making what you didn't have so that we could have better tools. I just love that story of how even though you're done with it, that you really saw that need and you are helping us in a tremendous way. Thank you so much, Joan, for coming on the show.
You're welcome, Christy. Thank you so much for having me. It's just my pleasure, indeed. You have my heart.